Still an everyday struggle trying to get fed. Need a spot at the table for my daily bread. Wonder why we thuggin', though we misled. It's dog when we trying to break the daily bread. You can't feel the hunger through an op-ed. Don't cover how we suffer for the daily bread. Sometimes that pressure make me feel like I'ma lose my head. To make sure my young seeds get their daily bread. Waking up to the traffic in the sunrise. Just another day trying to strategize. Mama running late for work, thinking strike two. Third job this year, cause it's nothing new. Trying to stay in school, trying to learn something. It's hard to get your mind right when your ribs touch. Teacher think I'm mugging, that's just hunger pains. Not being cinematic, but it's Hunger Games. Try to play it off, mute the suffering. But my stomach break the silence when it's rumbling. So it's quarter cakes, chips, and ramens. Hunger is something 1 in 5 shorties got in common. Hit up corner stores, no fresh markets around. Sustained from the shelf, no food straight from the ground. Multiply that times all the hoods in my town. We playing in the field, but nobody working the ground. Still an everyday struggle trying to get fed. Need a spot at the table for my daily bread. Wonder why we thuggin', though we misled. It's dog when we trying to break the daily bread. You can't feel the hunger through an op-ed. Don't cover how we suffer for the daily bread. Sometimes the pressure make me feel like I'ma lose my head. To make sure my seeds get their daily bread.
Some scrape their bread up from the crumbs left on the table. Sipping pot liquor to ease that rumbling coming from behind their navel. You're making that bread when you need your own dough. And the sharpest knife in the drawer can get a slice off that loaf. It's the life that I chose, but it's life it chose me. You see, my daddy was a soldier and my mama a G. I'm talking integrity, legacy, how to march when I step. If granny cooked it, all you heard was to nothing left. Heard a scrape on the plate, but if you don't work, you don't eat. You gotta earn your own keep. What a man sows is what a man reaps. Daddy took his machete, then he handed to me and said, keep swinging and chopping until the way I can see. Adorn the armor of God when I step on the street, knowing the Lord protected me from my head to my feet. When Daddy took his old machete, then he handed to me and said, keep swinging and chopping until the way I can see my daily bread.
Still an everyday struggle trying to get fed. Need a spot at the table for my daily bread. Wonder why we thuggin', though we misled. It's dog when we trying to break the daily bread. You can't feel the hunger through an op-ed. Don't cover how we suffer for the daily bread. Sometimes make me feel like I'ma lose my head. To make sure my young seeds get their daily bread.
B1AG family, what's growing on? What's growing on? What is growing on? I hope everything is going well in your lives. I hope you're in that growth mind state. Welcome. Welcome to the B1AG Daily Bread podcast. And we have a very important show for you today. And it's dealing with food, of course. Here at B1AG, we focus on Black agriculture as it pertains to agricultural production, education, marketing, food, nutrition, health, and economics for the Black family and the Black community. Because here at B1AG, we are B1 first. We have an interesting story out of Georgia at a daycare. This daycare, a lot of daycares now, they are equipped with remote viewing. You can tap into the cameras and watch what the daycare is doing when you're not there. So it's like you can peek in on your kids from your cell phone. And a Black couple, they seen something very interesting. They seen that all the Black kids seem to be getting fed last. And then even when they were being fed, they didn't have plates. So what we're going to talk about today is called Hunger Games. at the daycare under investigation for feeding black children last. And what we would like to address is, the socialization of our kids in this country when it comes to food. Are they being socialized into food insecurity? With them being fed last and being treated, it's like they're still being put to the back of the bus, like Rosa Parks. Saying it's like Frederick Douglass, he wrote masterfully about how food was used as a weapon for control. Has much changed? Farmer Brown MC, I know you have two 2-year-old twins, so I know this is a topic that touches home base for you personally. Let's talk about it, bro.
First, I just like to say peace to the B1AG family. Hope everybody's doing well, everybody's alert at what's going on in this ever-changing climate. Yeah, man. I was fortunate. My twins were born in 2019. I was able to get a few, able to use family leave, and so we were both able to be at home, in the first few months of our children's lives, and then when they turned 1, that's when the COVID hit. And so once again, I was fortunate to have a job where I was able to work remotely. And so that was actually a benefit to where, once again, I was able to keep my children in the home with us. I'll say fortunately, but unfortunately, my children just now started daycare literally 3 weeks ago. And so I've been on pins and needles for the whole year. We stayed out on a farm year 1, year 2. Children never had coughs, sniffles, anything like that. I was able to, prepare their meals. Mother was able to prepare their meals. We knew exactly what they were eating, feeding schedules on code the whole way. And so, obviously over the last few months here in Kentucky, there have been, slowly opening back up. And so we were just trying to stay ahead of the curve as far as making sure, okay, if I do have to go back to the office, obviously Mama Bear is off working, just making sure we had another child care plan in place. And this definitely didn't make me feel good seeing this story. Because one of the things before we had them, we, as best as possible, tried to lay out a plan of, hey, we don't really want them going to daycare until they can at least talk to us and tell us what's going on. If somebody touching them in the wrong way, is something happening. And I would say in the last 3 weeks, I start seeing these little green boogers. You walk in, I go in and pick them up, and I'm seeing all these little kids snotty. And I understand, at the end of the day, kids have immune systems. It makes them a little stronger. But seeing this story definitely didn't make me feel good as a parent. I don't like to throw shade on daycares because I do know there are some daycares that truly embrace their role as caregivers. I am a firm believer that nobody's going to give your children more care than your parents, than your family. But as we realize, we're in a community where 75% of our households are ran by women. We talked a few months ago about a young lady. I think she was in Ohio. Her kids were staying in one of those extended stay facilities. She had to go to work at Little Caesars, and the kids had to do something. Mom's doing everything she can to make sure they eat. And a lot of parents, generally, when we're thinking about food insecurity, assume that sending your kid to daycare, sending your kid to school, they're going to get their nutritional, they're going to get their dietary needs met. And so this story was very disparaging, not only on the food insecurity, but the racial implications. Those people that understand psychology, Pavlov's dog, the dinner bell. This is a horrible look. And right now here at B1AG, we obviously point out the problems, but we'd also, over the course of this podcast, want to go over some solutions because this is real, y'all.
Now, for those of you who are unaware of this story of this daycare down in I think it's Roswell, Georgia, I would like to show you the news broadcast of exactly what we're talking about. Um, Before we get into it, I do want to go ahead and put up our copyright disclaimer. Fair Use Act. Allowances made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, teaching, scholarship, and research. Fair use is a use permitted by copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing. Nonprofit, educational, or personal use tips is the balance in favor of fair use. Okay, now that we got that out of the way, I want to show you about this report of this Georgia daycare.
New at 11, allegations of racism at a local daycare, an image appearing to show white students being fed first while Black children wait to eat. Thanks for joining us. I'm Karen Greer.
And I'm Rick Volbaum. And tonight, the parent company is taking action, severing ties with the daycare amid the controversy. All of this happening at Kids Are Kids Learning Academy near downtown Roswell.
CBS 46's Jamie Kennedy's live there tonight after speaking exclusively to the company president and a child's father. Jamie, what did you learn?
Well, Karen, I was able to speak to all parties involved in this. Now, this has all happened in less than 24 hours for this daycare center, which consequently from all of this has now been sent adrift from the franchise. Accusations of racism at a Roswell daycare explode online.
They were skipping all of the Black kids, it seemed like.
A family says they saw it happen while checking in on their 2-year-old through a video live stream for the Kids Are Kids Roswell location.
All the white kids got their lunch and all the Black kids had to wait.
So the stunned family took a screenshot.
From the videos and the pictures that we saw today, I mean, we are just completely disturbed.
And went straight to the daycare to confront the staff.
Mom went and picked them up immediately. And the director said, I'm not really sure because I'm not in the classroom. She said, maybe it's a dietary thing.
The family doesn't buy that. They shared the story and snapshot online, igniting a social media firestorm.
I wish that everybody would be able to see the video in its entirety first and not just the snapshot.
David Vincent says he's viewed the entire video in question. His company issued the family an apology and says they will use the incident as a training tool.
We wanted to make sure that our families know that this is not what we are about.
After talking to the daycare owner today, the company is severing ties with the Roswell branch.
Perception, unfortunately, is reality. And with the cancel culture, I mean, unfortunately, it's the perception.
As for the daycare, saying in a statement, we know the act was random and the photo doesn't show the entire room. We believe if the parents viewed the videos, they would understand. I wish they could see the compassion we have.
Farmer Brown, how much longer do we have to wait to eat? How much longer do we have to wait to eat? B1AG family. Now, it's interesting they say about perception. There's no perception when you have a table, several tables with different ethnicities of children. And at each table, all the other kids have something to eat except for the Black children. It's not like all the Black children were sitting at one table just and they were made, feeding last that way. All the other kids around them had plates to eat except for them. How much longer do we have to wait to eat, Farmer Brown?
Let's get to the numbers. Right now, what we call this concept of North America, 79.3% of teachers and instructors are white. 79.3%. Like I had spoken briefly at the beginning, Pavlov. This was an experiment done a long time ago, and the concept is called classical conditioning. And this was using dogs to ring a bell to make them aware of when it was time to feed. The other day we were talking about epigenetics, how our brains and our DNA can be trained into certain behaviors. This isn't conspiracy theory. This is scientifically proven methods of putting somebody's mind in a place. Once again, none of these occurrences are happening in silos. How many of us over the last 3 or 4 years have watched people's lives get snuffed out from them through a camera? Millions, billions of people around the world are watching and we have to deliberate in court whether or not this was murder or not, right? But here at B1AG, we're specifically talking about food insecurity. And when you think about war, I think about the behold a pale horse, silent weapons for silent wars. In any war throughout history, you always have rules of engagement. One of those rules being you leave the women and the children out of it. And so it is, as a black male, watching that our women and especially our children are being targeted for this nefarious. You can't call it anything other than nefarious. There's no sort of explaining to explain this away. I heard some people say, oh, it might have been a dietary. There's no dietary. This is classical conditioning. This is literally conditioning those students in that classroom that you're supposed to eat second. So how does this manifest itself over the course of their school matriculation through school? How does this manifest itself when it comes to society? How does this manifest itself when it comes to economics? It puts in your mind that I'm supposed to eat second or I'm supposed to eat last. When I think about our blowback for all of the injustices that we see going on now on a political level, and you have to ask ourselves, why as a people do you keep asking somebody who keeps telling you no to prioritize your needs, basic human needs? It's one thing, hey, I want my kids to eat lobster and steak. This isn't fair. My kids can't eat lobster and steak. Like we said, we know 75, and these numbers keep popping up, these random numbers, and I'm not into numerology, but we know 75% of our households are ran by women. Many of these women have to go to work. And so they're sending their children to daycare schools based on the thought that, okay, since I'm at work, I can't necessarily provide breakfast, lunch, and sometimes dinner to my child. And so I'm assuming that many of these taxpayer-funded schools, because most of us can't afford private daycare, we're assuming that our children's dietary needs are met. I'm gonna go into a brief story. Just in this last week, I went to go pick my children up. And, like I said, I'm not throwing shade. You got to speak truth. And my daughter, over the last year, they haven't been sick. My daughter hadn't puked since she was like 1. And that was because just the transition from breast milk to almond milk, because we don't do dairy. She's puking up last week. I went in, picked them up, and see, I pop up at different times. My mother was a school teacher, and she always told me how the students whose parents were present, the students whose parents came in and asked questions, you never know when they're going to pop up. The teachers, administration are going to act very different towards those students versus the one who's you don't really see their parents. This 79% of teachers, there's this onslaught of the Karenism going on in America. There's a lot of stressed out people right now. Don't want to be at work because of COVID. Don't want to be at work because of low wages. Don't want to be at work just because, people are upset right now. So this isn't caping. These are the dynamics that are going around. Who's handing these plates out to these children? What is the energy behind this eating dynamic? Because we understand eating has a lot more implications on the mind and our body than just eating alone. This is how you commune with one another. This is how you heal yourself. And so if our children, when we're not watching because we're busy or because we don't have any other choice but to send them to these care facilities, are being socialized to see themselves as eating second, I can't repeat enough what are the long-term implications of this. This is breeding us into being docile. This is breeding us into accepting something that is totally inhumane. The neighborhood where I live now, I see some of these dogs walking around in Gucci leashes, right? And so what we see, I think about Mike Vick. He, his whole career was destroyed because of fighting dogs. And I'm not a proponent but the issue is there's some people that care more about their animals than our children. So like you were saying, how long do we keep handing our kids over to people that don't care about them? Like I said, I'm not coming from a place of judgment. Yes, daycare eats your pockets up. Yes, we have to go to work. We're in a world where people are losing their jobs left and right. We're in a world where food insecurity is a real thing, and it's only increasing. But here at B1AG, like I said, this isn't about just planting cute little flower gardens. Oh, let me dabble around in the garden. No. The first things first, to see the next day, we have to eat. Food insecurity, and we're going to go over this in a little bit. It just happens to be in the areas where a majority of the melanated family is. Let my people go. Pharaoh's heart has been hardened. Pharaoh's heart has been hardened. How many conversations, how many times are we going to, somebody slaps you only so many times and says, I'm sorry. Oh, I thought I was reaching for my taser. Oh, I didn't know I was just feeding this group over that one. Okay, maybe you didn't notice it, but your racial bias is so deeply entrenched in your mind, it becomes natural. But once again, you can ask people to change their mind and behavior so much until we look at, as a family, as a community. Once again, this is a silent activity. Whoever's watching this, whoever's listening, I imagine you care about your children, you care about your grandkids, your nieces and nephews. And if you can't do nothing else for them, you want them to eat. But I keep skipping around because, man, this is touchy. And so my daughter was puking up this spaghetti, and it was whole chunks of spaghetti. And I feed my kids pasta sometimes and never had this problem. And I'm just wondering, what was happening during this feeding experience to where my daughter is now 6. She's been kind of lethargic for the last few days. My son didn't necessarily have the same issue. But once again, as a parent, if I didn't see what was directly going into my child's body, anybody can tell me anything. Anybody can tell me anything. I would like to think, because there's a relative, and it's actually more brown people at my children's daycare. But, what is it, 44 million of us, what they say, 44 million in North America. The large majority of our population are children. We have a lot of children. Can we afford to go into another paradigm where we see ourselves as, okay, it's only normal to eat second. It's only normal to wait on everybody else to eat. You think about what happened in New York. A lot of people have been perturbed. I think $30 billion for immigrants, and there's more provisions being made for people that aren't even from here. Truth is power in truth. It's power and truth. We see the media headlines that tell us, oh, help is coming. Oh, we're gonna research reparations. We're gonna see what this look. No. You know what you owe. What did Dr. Amos Wilson say? If you enjoy the spoils of plundered, stolen land, then you have to enjoy it. Then you have to feel the curses. But there's also a responsibility of those who this attack, and it is an attack. There's a responsibility of us to decide now: are we going to keep looking back to Egypt, or are we going to go towards the promised land? Yeah, there's some time in the wilderness, and B1AG is about, okay, since we see we're going into this wilderness, what are some practical things we can do in this so-called, this proverbial wilderness? And this is learning how to produce our own food, not just growing gardens. How do we create localized food systems to make sure that our most vulnerable is eating? If nothing else, eating. It'll be nice to be able to buy our kids nice clothes, have all of these fun things that they can do. But what are we doing to make sure they're at least eating? Since we see that there is a faction that has a codified approach of making sure they eat second. These are some questions we have to ask yesterday, people.
I know one thing you shine insight into is a socialization process. You said Pavlov's law. Are we being socialized into food insecurity? It's being normalized, the term food deserts. Often that is in our communities. We see that from this report, this daycare, they're feeding the Black children last. Are we being literally socialized into being food insecure? Where having access to this food, we're starting you from the daycare, as a child. We're going to make sure that you're used to this because we're going to hold this from you. Maybe not, but it appears to be that way to me. So Farmer Brown, I know we have some real data, not just what we think. We have real data when it comes to food insecurity. Are you ready to go over that information?
And, when we think about the compensatory code, shot to the elder Nilly Fuller, this is just about producing justice. This is about producing justice, helping those that need the most help, giving them constructive help, right? So when we go over this data, Right now, we know Hispanic and white communities experience food insecurity. Once COVID hit, 40%. Black families, 60%. You know, you can colors green, purple, whatever color. You know, when you give these specific numbers, who is the group that needs the most help? And then we see this situation in Georgia. It is the kids who are most likely to experience food insecurity that are being denied food. What does this tell you? I mean, how can you be any more truthful? I'm not a numbers person, but there's a clear difference between 60% of something and 40% of something. When you look at this chart right here, so this represents food insecurity by states in what we call North America. And you'll notice it's that southern region. You see Kentucky, I see South Carolina, I see Florida, I see Georgia, I see Alabama, Mississippi. So that's where my grandmother lived, Osaka, Mississippi. Shout out to Macomb. Shout out to Jackson. Louisiana, Arkansas, Texas, Oklahoma. This is where the food insecurity is. And I imagine this daycare in Georgia wasn't an anomaly. Once again, I can't truthfully say, okay, I've just canvassed all of the daycares there to say that, yes, this is going on everywhere. But when we think about all of the other injustices going on with violence, when we think about these areas right here also are where the majority of Black farmers are, 80% are in these areas that are darkest. So once again, how much of a paradox is this that the areas where the Black farmers do exist is where the most food insecurity exists? These are some things to ponder, people. What do we do? What are some codified approaches? We were speaking the other day about something as simple as seed banks. We know in Norway there was $8 million spent, and this is through the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, to create a seed bank of heirloom seeds, just in case these experiments and all this land he bought goes bad. $8 million is a drop in the bucket. There was a rapper that got like a $24 million diamond in his head. I forget his name, and I'm glad I didn't know. We have billions of dollars going into computer-generated videos showing us gyrating, doing things with Satan. We have all of this money going into all of these things that is not feeding our communities, not feeding our minds, not feeding our bodies. Is it worth me not getting some new clothes maybe in 2021 to find some like-minded people to form some co-ops, some food co-ops? Is it worth me to kind of, okay, maybe this year I ain't going to get as many, I don't want to disparage sisters, right? Sisters have every right in the world to look good, feel good. But we also know there's factions like Goldman Sachs, like, I'm going to make it rain $10 billion on sisters. We're not here to pocket watch, but sisters who represent 75% of the household, the head of household, is this something to invest in? When we're sending our children to school, they might not be eating. Brothers who's watching, what can we do? We see that there's nobody going to come and just make it rain on the Black man in America. And so are we able to work together? Are we able to sit down and powwow and figure out, now, how can we make sure our children are eating, if nothing else? Are we willing to put some mud and blood into the mud, sweat and blood into the mud to start producing? Can we go in together and start leasing some land? Acres here, acres there. We know it takes about 200 square feet to feed one individual their annual intake of produce, 800 square feet to feed a family of 4. Within an acre, there's about 43,000 square feet. These are operations that we can run in a community. When you think about urban gardening, when you think about vertical gardening, when you think about the concept of distribution, shout out to the Better Buggy out of Atlanta. We're going to discuss that in another show, but there are already entities in place. Black Soil KY, this is our company up here in Kentucky. There are already entities in place that have at least figured out, what do these logistics look like? Getting the produce from the farm, bringing it to the area where people can then come purchase it. Right now, so there's certain classes you can take. There's certain programs you can take to where you can actually sell your food and be able to sell it and get food stamps or be able to receive SNAP. These are all things that can be done right now. These aren't far-fetched ideas. I know a lot of people are get liquor licenses, which is cool, but we see that a lot of the clubs, places where we're spending leisure time, are being shut down. What are we going to do about our food security? Are we investing in buildings to make hubs where we can store food, to where if children come home still hungry, in your mind as a parent, I'm thinking, okay, I thought you just ate 2 meals today. As I'm thinking about it, I'm having this conversation when I go pick my children up, I'll already have dinner ready for them when they get back, but they're always hungry. And what does Neely Fuller say? We're not allowed to accuse anybody of racism, right? Black people, we're not in position. We don't have the power to accuse of racism. But how do I know my children are being fed? Like I said, I because I work remotely, I can pull up at random times. But a lot of us out here can't. A lot of us aren't in position. We're inconvenienced because, okay, well, I work second shift. I can't do that. Me and baby mama ain't getting along. Dad's in prison. Mama done lost her rockers. Granny, she has to stay in the house because she got pre-existing conditions. We have a lot of these little dynamics going on that are affecting our food security. And so we really need to continue this conversation of what are we going to do to ensure, if nothing else, that we're eating, specifically our kids, starting at an early age. Because think about this, the same way that they're conditioning these kids to see themselves eating second, the same way when we were talking about my son and outside, we can condition our kids to see themselves as I can't accept not eating first. We can condition them by them watching us working together, coming out, seeing the bros from around the way, building these high tunnels in the hood, constructing these box gardens for the women to come in and rain that black magic and make this stuff grow. It'll be good if you can have a college degree, because guess what? Colleges definitely need, especially the land grant institutions. They need more of us going to these institutions, right, to learn agriculture. But you don't have to get a degree to learn how to grow food. This is an ancestral trait that is in our genes. This is a part of our nature. What are we going to do about this, family?
What are we going to do about this B1AG family? All the problems that we face always come back to us. What are we going to do? And righteously so. And righteously so. Now, this daycare in Roswell, Georgia is just a glimpse into all the different ways, different angles, food and food insecurity is a part of our life. It's a part of our life. Whether we eat or not, that is a major part of our life. That's a daily part of our life, daily, because we need energy, we need sustenance, we need food, we need to be fed, and that's literally through produce, food we ingest, but that's also figuratively, spiritually, mentally, socially. How much longer are we going to accept being fed last? It's a real question. Think about it, and I hope that sits and resonates with you as your day moves forward. So, Farmer Brown, these Hunger Games, man, what are some more ways that we can fight this? Like, they say Hunger Games, so how do we win? How do we win this game over hunger?
If somebody is reaching out, if I'm speaking in extension agent capacity about, hey, I want to be a farmer, where do I start? So first off, you don't plan a farm enterprise, keyword enterprise. Farming isn't just about being cute growing. Like, no, this is a business. So first things first, you need a 5-year plan, 10-year plan. Don't plan 1 year ahead, 2 years, no, 3, 5, 10 years. The children that are in these daycares now, guess what? At some point, whether they go to college or whether they just learn a trade, they're going to get older. So just like they're being socialized to eat second, socialize them to see themselves as a part of the land. They need to see melanated faces giving these instructions. You don't have to be a professional. You don't have to be an expert for your children to at least see you building a box garden, because we have carpenters out there that might not be green thumbs, but they know how to build structures. You know, I think about the brothers that I know that grow corn, right? You know, the legalized marijuana industry. Guess what? If you can apply that same intellect to growing produce, you have an advantage over somebody who's just now going to college to learn how to grow something. Going back to what I was saying, building these high tunnel facilities and greenhouses. Once you understand the concept of creating a controlled environment, then your mind is going to take it where it goes as you do it. And so there's nothing like learning through experience. These are things that can be implemented within your community. You understand, okay, plants need sun, plants need water. So let me make sure there's a water source. Let me not just dig a garden in the first green space. How easy is it to access this water? Is it going to be city water? Am I in a rural area? Will I need to dig a well? How much is it going to cost to dig this? Is the water I'm using already contaminated? You know, some of these things are things we need to think about. But, you know, once again, you know, I don't come from a disparaged mindset. We don't come from a deficit mindset. We come from, okay, with all of these confusions, how do we focus? So once again, it needs sun, water, and care, just like these babies. It's not a thing where you put a plant in the ground and just go about your business. Right now, we understand the majority of black farmers in North America, matter of fact, 75%, this 70 number keeps popping up, are making under $10,000 a year. This is because they're getting shut out of the markets. Well, guess what? I heard the sister, she's another content creator on YouTube, Lisa Cabrera. She's been promoting the Better Buggy. And she said just in a week, this is a normal content creator. Lisa Cabrera isn't a farmer or anything like that, but she linked up with this company, and the company was selling CSA shares for like $59 for their baskets. They said in a week, just because of her promoting their brand on her content page, you know, she talks about current events. Just because of that, in a week's time, they were able to now make a cheaper basket for $29. If you amplify this same model, once again, we're not trying to come with new ideas. We're just refining the ideas that already exist. You think about Booker T. Watley, how to make $125,000 on 25 acres. All of these methods already exist, and it's really looking at how do we apply them in our region. If I'm in Ohio, guess what? I have a different landscape than if I'm in Florida, than if I'm in Texas. But the same concepts apply if you need sun, water, and care. Consistency. When we think about the jobs that are being lost, you know, I'm not in position to hire somebody with a full, you know, you're going to have this great burgeoning career, but I do have a little bit where I can afford to pay a couple of young cats a couple of days out the week. Hey, man, tend to this garden. Can you spend 9 hours of your week, 3 hours on 3 days just to water? Just to water. Matter of fact, you know, get and absorb some of this greenery, because we know it helps you mentally. Okay, you over there, okay, you don't really want to water. Just come out, and you're one of those active kids that we see. We need you to weed. And if you can weed, and this is getting one of the diamond hoes or doing it by hand, guess what? This minimizes us having to get pesticides. It minimizes us having to get all of these other inputs to make sure we're getting the plants that we want. Okay, maybe you're playing sports throughout the summer, but can we reach out to your parent and assure that you're going to come when it's time to harvest? Can we connect you to some of these black farms that need a couple of extra hands during the course of the year? Because as you're earning, you're learning. You know, we're always in the constant process of learning. But once again, socializing these young people and us adults, because, you know, once again, I'm still learning, you know, but the more people I talk to, guess what? The more information I receive. I understand the younger you are, when you start taking these things into your mind, it becomes a part of you. Social engineering. These are practical strategies. It costs you the time, because we are the money, right? Money is just a representation of our current. The concept of current, electricity, is the flow. We've allowed ourselves to be damned by media. We've allowed ourselves to be damned by this opaque layer that tells us we're needy, that tells us that we're a charity case. We're not a charity case. The wealth of this country, the wealth of this world was built on our ancestors. The degree that we can apply that, and this is a silent activity. This is a non-denominational activity. The degree that we can apply our current to producing. I think the children alone, if we see that 60% of our families are food insecure, this is a direct target. If I'm getting to the bag in Chicago, if I'm getting to the bag in New York, I'm getting to the bag wherever I'm at. You know, a lot of us elders, especially men, we're getting hit with that karma. What can we do to balance it out? You know, I've done things in my life I'm not happy about, but you know, at the end of the day, I can go to bed with a clear conscience, knowing, okay, I'm trying. You know, I'm not in no place to say, oh, you're bad and I'm good. But what I can do with these little dirty hands is get them dirty in the soil, and at the same time, show somebody else how to do it. Because guess what this is going to do? This is going to save them thousands of dollars over the course of their lives, and might even save their lives just by teaching them how to grow something. And this is something we can do in a community. We don't have to ask permission to teach each other how to grow.
Very powerful words. I really hope that the B1 family, you know, I hope they listen and learn from those words. They're very powerful. Again, you know, this conversation was started due to a Roswell, Georgia daycare video, which appeared to show that they were feeding our children last. You know, I asked the question again, really just for us to ponder on how much longer are we going to accept eating last, being fed last? And you know, the best way we can attack being fed last is how about we just feed ourselves? So, Farmer Brown, this is a nice slice of daily bread today, man. Hey, I almost caught the ag Holy Ghost over here, man. I was ready to go put me some seeds in the ground right now. You know, those were great. You know, hey, this is a good one, man. And I hope the B1 family, the B1AG family feels the same way. You know, I hope you do feel inspired to go ahead and not having to worry about being fed last because we can feed ourselves. We're feeding ourselves. So as we end every show, if you really want to know something, Farmer Brown, what do they have to do? What
As
should they
above,
do?
so below. Family, it's time to grow. Let's grow something.
All right. B1AG family, thank you for tuning in. Hope your day is prosperous. I hope you stay in that growth state of mind. And see you again for another slice of daily bread from the B1AG. Peace out.